Good morning, everyone. For those of you I have not met, my name is Jennifer McPhee, Market President of Bank of America for the Albany-Hudson Valley region. I hope you and your families are safe and doing well, and we're thrilled that you chose today to spend your morning with us today at Women Who Lead. Welcome to our third virtual Women Who Lead breakfast event. We have adjusted to these new times and are trying to find ways to stay connected. And I want to thank everyone at the Times Union and our Women Who Lead folks who really are driving our connection during these times. Today, we are thrilled to welcome back one of our previous Women Who Lead speakers, Nicole Snow of Darn Good Yarn. As many of you know, Nicole founded Darn Good Yarn in the mid-2000s out of her home and moved her facility into a warehouse in Clifton Park in 2018. Throughout this coronavirus pandemic, Darn Good Yarn and Nicole have seen a huge shift in employment. Since we last connected with her in February, Darn Good Yarn has lost more than 50% of its employees, and she had to reconcile herself to that fact. When the Capital Region first started experiencing this pandemic, Darn Good Yarn saw a significant decrease in its sales. However, that has since turned around. This positive change is being attributed to the notion that people have found a way to address and meet their basic needs and essentials, such as access to food and supplies, and are now turning to more leisure activities to occupy their time. Nicole, like many others, is using this pandemic as an opportunity to reevaluate what is in fact deemed essential for her role in running her business and what aspects of it can be found to be outsourced or can be completely done away with. Operating in adversity is not without its losses and gains, and I'm looking forward to hearing Nicole's perspective this morning on how Darn Good Yarn and other local businesses have and will find a way to advance forward long after this pandemic is behind us. With that, thank you all for joining us this morning. Please join me in welcoming Nicole Snow and Sarah Tracy, who will be facilitating the conversation.
Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's so good to have you back, Nicole. I'm very excited. And hello to our Women at Work members and maybe people who are not part of Women at Work but are joining us this morning. I'm Sarah Tracy. I am the senior editor of Women at Work, and I am thrilled that you are taking out some time to spend with us, both our audience and you, Nicole. Really, truly appreciate it.
Oh, it's totally my pleasure. Thanks so much. And I'm hoping I'm going to rely on the audience today if they have questions. I think people have been going to so many of these like WebExes or Zooms or whatever the heck we're on. I think we're all in that kind of like, where am I mode. So if you have questions, like, you know, make sure that you're posting comments here, because you and I are pretty well. I think we're both from Central New Jersey. We can take like the hits and we can bob and weave.
We got it. We can bob and weave.
Comments, everyone.
Pivot has been my word of this whole pandemic. Pivot is a big word, and I think we'll talk about that more. So yeah, Nicole's right. With our live stream, please feel free to post your questions. You'll kind of see me darting back and forth because I'm watching the live stream as well, and we'll sprinkle in some of your questions as we go through. But Nicole, if we could start, for anyone that wasn't here for our February breakfast, or anyone that wasn't there for the Back to Business panel that the Times Union hosted yesterday, could you just give us a little bit of an overview of your role and what Darn Good Yarn does?
Yeah, so Darn Good Yarn is the very business thing is we're a direct-to-consumer brand, so we're mostly online, and 99% of our business is done online. I've been in business for the past 12 years, and I actually started Darn Good Yarn in the middle of the 2008 recession, not really knowing like the full economic like impact of that. And I think if I was older and I maybe followed the economies a little more, I would have been too scared to actually start. But it was a good thing because I was gritty from the start, and I find that we're going back to our roots there. But Darn Good Yarn operates on a triple bottom line framework. So what that means is that profitability is very important, but we're also looking at the people and how the planet is affected as it relates to our supply chain. So most of our products that we source are made from reclaimed material, and to date, we've saved over 2 million pounds of material waste and reused that back in our products like our skirts and clothing line, which makes up about half of our total revenue. And the other half is our really cool, amazing yarns. And that's what the whole company was founded on. We also provide sustainable employment to over 600 artisans in India and Nepal. And we're reaching more of a global footprint. And we'll hopefully talk about that a little bit more today, how that's changing. And in my role, I'm the founder and the owner, and we'll talk about this as well as how that even is changing within the company as we've gone through these times. The panel I was on yesterday, some amazing leaders, and they seemed so poised. They said, okay, well, COVID happened and I communicated it with my employees, and I was like, holy crap, people, like, we got to figure this out and take it by the horns before we get overrun. So I feel like my methodology might be a little bit more frantic, and I don't know. Maybe for some people it might be more relatable because I tend to lead from my instincts and my intuition a lot more than I have in the past. So that's Dark Yarn and me, I guess, in a 45-second nutshell.
I love it. I love it. So let's actually break into some of the, how you've been dealing with the pandemic. So, the nation was seeing the pandemic come from overseas and hit the US. New York was one of the first hotspots.
Yeah.
So when the pandemic first hit the capital region and we were starting to see shutdowns, what was your immediate reaction, and how did you pivot your business, once you learned like, oh, we might need to shut down our facility and everything?
Right. I talked to a lot of other e-commerce business owners. So I feel that we were lucky because we were seeing this happen. Because Darn Good Yarn works within China as well, we were seeing shutdowns start to happen and slow down our supply chain. And I remember we were dealing, I have another company, Steve and Nicole, and one of our clients, we were sourcing some product for her from China. And we were seeing Chinese New Year happen, which shuts things down anyway. But then we were also seeing this virus kind of come in and close things down. And for a country like China to have any closure in that way, we said, okay, this is a big deal. And as I started to talk to some other friends who are more heavily invested in Amazon, they were seeing it as well, like just resources shift. And then, and one of the goals when we started the year was to start to create more efficiencies in the business versus being on this growth trajectory. So we were like very fortunate to already have that mindset. I don't actually know how we would have reacted if I didn't have that going in. But I think because my mind wasn't set on growth in January, because we had so many things we had to fix in the business, like I was starting to realize that, I said, okay, we were already starting to pump our brakes. As it related to how do we stay an essential business and stay open, this is when like I really relied on my team, because I was a little bit like, okay, dealing with PPP and what is SBA coming down with. And I think any business owner can, I mean, it just changed again on the 15th and their calculators are still updating. So the business owner is still trying to figure this out, and how do we keep people engaged and working and paid, especially if sales are slumping in your particular niche. So my ops manager, Amanda, brilliantly started to work with our really fantastic suppliers and manufacturers within China, like very well trusted. And we worked together on almost a side project of Darn Good Yarn and our supply chain management. And we were able to source PPE, inclusive of certified N95 masks and surgical masks, isolation gowns, everything like that. And we were chartering flights in from Shanghai into the US and bringing them into New York. And this is with FEMA trying to, take over our thing. So I don't want to say we were pivoting. I think that like, I couldn't imagine actually just changing the business, but I was really looking at what we do very well, what our business processes are. And I think that's a really good lesson that we're using moving forward. Like, what are we really good at? Like, okay, we sell yarn on the internet. We joke about that, but like, we're really good at supply chain management and piecing together very complex vendor relationships, international relations. We've been doing this for over a decade. And Amanda just said, okay, there's a need, let's do this. And we successfully outfitted upstate New York hospitals with PPE. And that's a humongous deal. And it was definitely a source of pride. Like when I see my trailer now, that's all cutie, like, Darn Good Yarn branded, but it's like there's N95s in there if you see it riding around the capital region.
That's amazing. That really is. I mean, you took advantage of the business practices that you already had. And I mean, it is a bit of a pivot in terms of, I mean, you weren't doing N95 masks before,
No.
but you were, you were taking advantage of the connections that you had, which was really important. And how have you maintained some of those international connections now? Because it feels like there are so many, you know, just walls right now because we can't connect the way that we used to.
No, I mean, we've always been online in that sense. Like Darn Good Yarn has always lived in the ether. But we're dealing with India. India is 90% of my supply chain at the current moment. It's shut down, like literally shut down. And we had a container of inventory. It's paid for, so the cash is out of my bank account. It was sitting on a dock ready to leave, and they closed down India. Like we couldn't. I was like, just maybe like push it into the ocean. Maybe it'll float.
And
here.
it'll float here.
I was just being silly, but it happened so abruptly, and we thought that we actually thought India. I'm just looking at the date for 5/20. I think they were supposed to open the first week of May, and now they've pushed it to 5/30 to the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
So that's we've just been having to deal with what inventory we have within our warehouse. Usually I'll keep, for our best sellers, I'll keep 2 to 3 weeks of inventory, and that's constantly rolling in. So think about it. It's shut down. Our best sellers are like stuck. And once those supply chains open back up and those transport ways open back up, they're going to be flooded because there's thousands of other Darn Good Yarns out there that have inventory that's waiting. In terms of communication, it's just talking to our suppliers via Skype or doing, conferencing like this. That's always been part of what we've been doing, but just increasing, I think, the frequency of our communication and going that extra step. Say, hey, how are things actually going? In places where we're working, we've been able to work with our manufacturers directly, and we've been able to contribute to help them distribute food, by example, into their local villages. So just saying like, okay, what are ways we can do this? And we were able to feed hundreds of people that way. And so it's just taking what we've always done and saying, okay, we have to apply the COVID filter to it, and let's like try to help even more people in this time.
Sure. And I feel like Darn Good Yarn, part of your messaging has always been very community based and creating communities. So how are you communicating right now to your Darn Good Yarn community outside of your staff? Because I think I would like to talk more about your staff later, but for your outward your outward facing community for Darn Good Yarn, how has your communication and your messaging changed for that?
So as soon as I remember, there was I don't even know the days. I think we're on like day 60 something, right?
They blur together. It's okay.
I'm just staying at home because we're still in the throes of this, and I don't have time right now to move back into my office. Like I'm set up here, I'm focused on the day to day. So, and my team is as well. And I don't want to disrupt that because we're still in a very fragile place. I feel like economically, I feel like we have a couple, like there's not enough things in cement yet to make me say, okay, everyone, let's move back in. We'll practice safe practices and it'll be business as usual. I think psychologically that's too much too. But, and I'm sorry, we were going one track with this.
How you've been communicating with your Darn Good Yarn. Yeah, sure.
So yeah, so I was talking about like when we packed up, it was so frantic, and I told my the person who manages our social media post, and I said, Sam, like here's the deal. I don't know what's going to happen right now, but we cannot keep selling to our customers. Like the language needs to shift immediately. You have the most fun personality at this company. You're going to be the cruise director on the Titanic. So your job is just to engage and have fun and like, don't go overboard. Like, this is still a crisis, but I want people to come to us as a stress relief and like a guilty pleasure and starting to think in that framework as a company. And that's been awesome because we've seen our engagement go up, and then we're looking for other ways to serve our customer. And it's simple things like we do a free coloring page every day, and the moms out there are addicted to it because they're printing out and they're like, here you go, kid. Like I need 5 minutes. So thinking about the customer in like what exactly they're going through, so I think like how we're approaching what we're offering and being very thoughtful in what the customer experience really is, because we're actually going through the same thing as them. Like we're really building out our kids craft line, by example, right now. And I just go to the experience that I have with my 3-year-old. Like you get to a point of like, okay, there's we have a joke internally that googly eyes are now like the new Bitcoin in our family. Like this is a thing, and like any mom who's crafting or dad who's crafting a lot with their kids knows like, okay, what's the next activity? So it's getting, I think it's really trying to figure out how to serve the consumer in a way that's very respectful to them, understanding of their family economy and uncertainty, just the same way we're experiencing the same thing. And
Sure. And I'm sure that probably in the last couple of months you've seen an uptick in business, because I feel like people are probably, they have their food, they have their water and all that. And now they just need a release. They need something to take their mind off. They need something to fill the hours, when we're in the same 4 walls that we've been in.
Yeah, we've seen an uptick to the stabilization mark, which I like. It's just over break even for us. We're paying down any debt and things like that. And that's been critical. Again, we were going in from January. We were going into COVID with a broken wing, and I was already like going through looking for efficiencies, working with my stellar CFO and saying, okay, when we buy this, how does it affect my financials? And do we actually have to have top line growth of sales, or can we achieve profitability? It's a different way of thinking about it. And I kick myself because I wish, like, when I was the business owner at even a quarter of the size, I wish I engaged a CFO in some way. It seems like, because they're more money than your accountant, they're more money than your bookkeeper, just on an hourly basis, but they help you make very strategic moves on how your money should be deployed. And right now, if anyone is like on the fence, I would say like it is really worth it to engage. And this is not an accountant and this is not a bookkeeper. I want to be really clear about that. Like, unless there's specializations, I don't want to like diss on anyone. If someone is a hybrid of that, I've never met them, like someone who does that very effectively. But having that strategic financial outlook right now, where we're going to go in a place where cash is going to be king, and your foundation better be rock solid. So I feel that the best analogy is that we just got hit by a hurricane, and I'm like, I didn't have my hurricane shutters on. I didn't have anything on. Okay, I got to tear all that out. I got to rebuild it. I got to build it with hurricane shutters. And that's a methodical process.
Sure. It kind of goes back to, the thought that you had at the beginning of the year, where we figure out what's essential and what's not. And I would love to get into that a little bit later too. And again, anyone who's watching, if you have questions, please feel free to send them. We're watching the live stream. We want to make sure that you get your questions into Nicole as well. She's been one of the most fun interviews that I've had while I've been with Women at Work. So please
I'll
feel
be very
free.
transparent and authentic with my answers, I promise.
But one thing, because we were talking about CFOs and all of that, let's talk about staff. Because if anyone was listening to Jennifer's introduction, you heard, since you had our talk in February, you've lost, I think it's more than 50% of your staff at Darn Good Yarn, which is just, I mean, in normal times, that is a huge, huge blow in less than 3 full months. And now you're facing that in a pandemic. So can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, we went from 21 employees starting in January to I'm at 9 employees, including one loss of someone on my C-suite, which was like, oh boy. I think the business was evolving. Again, pre-pandemic. And there was no fortune telling. Like, I think there was just natural evolutions. I don't know how to say it, because it was like, I'm still trying to grapple with it. I think there were missed opportunities for leadership development. I think we maybe attracted the wrong personality type in some instances at our company that wasn't someone who works at our company, and I think when I was first hiring and we were building up our staff, so starting like almost a year ago, starting to really build that team up, we were so excited to just get people that I don't want to say just had a pulse, but like they were kind of interested in the brand and they're like, this is really cool. But I didn't have the hiring acumen to really make sure though that it's a right fit for my current team. And my current core team, there's a very specific skill set, and like, let's just get after it. Let's be entrepreneurial. Let's just keep figuring out how to utilize whatever resources we have. And that's not a fit for everyone. And that environment, I think, can burn some people. Some people it totally, it invigorates me actually. It invigorates my current staff. But I think with others, it's a recipe for burnout. And so I think it's, you know, it's like when there's a breakup, it's not any one person. I think it's both of us. The company has been so quickly evolving. And I look back and I go like, okay, there's definitely some heartbreaks, and you go like, man, I wish people could really rise to the occasion during these times. But like, you can't save everyone, I guess. And I look at it from the place that I'd rather have, I said this yesterday, I'd rather have a SEAL team working and knowing that we all have each other's backs than having an army versus of like, you know, just some people have to decide like, are they going to go work for the other team? And you're just sort of like, okay, or do you want your extra $600 a week on unemployment? So like, I think employers have really been dealing with stressors where, and I think it's difficult because we're now like responsible for mental health of all of our employees in a way we never have before. And it's like, okay, at some point though, there has to be a personal accountability play on this. I also see that poor attitude when not handled and brought into the workplace for the team that is working and gelling together is 20 times more destructive and accelerated in this environment. Because people are kind of on the brink and they just want something to stay motivated with. And like, okay, I feel pumped that I woke up and put a bra and pants on this morning. Like, this is a big deal. And like, these are little victories. So I think when someone brings that into the work environment, even if it's on a Zoom call in the morning and we're doing stand-up, it kind of takes the wind out of everyone's tattered sails at this point. And for me, like, we're such a small team that it's highly, highly destructive. And I've lost actually a lot of tolerance for that. I'm sure every person who's in HR here is like, please give me a call, Nicole, and I'll take your call. So just hit me up on LinkedIn. But it's so personal, and we are running on such a fine line right now that if we don't, I don't want to say trim the fat, but if we don't become more efficient in our execution and expect higher ROI, I don't think we'll be here for another day.
Right. Yeah, it's a different take on efficiency that you probably didn't predict at the start of your year.
No. And I'll tell you that I said at the start of the call, like I do a lot of leading and sort of spidey sensing from my gut. And that's just like, I tried to beat that out of myself and be more macho. And like, you know, I watch even like my male counterparts, like they just seem more hard ass. And I'm just not that person. So I usually can tell like the way someone looks, like sort of out of the corner of their reaction to something. And I'm like, I usually can time I'm like, they're gone in 45 days. So I usually will see someone when they're going like a pretty low, and I don't know what it is, but if you have that sense, start looking. So like I had someone leave me last week. I was able to fill their position in 3 days because I was already looking. I already had that spidey sense and I wasn't in denial about it. That was really critical. And then I rely on the people that are my number crunchers that are much more logical than me to keep me on the straight and narrow of that as well. So Sarah, like the other thing that that's been important is in terms of like turnover is my actual firing of myself from my day to day. That's been really important. I think like it's breathed actually, it's put a little bit more breath into the company that I have and the team that I have. I'm like, you know what? You guys are actually like flourishing right now and we're not all in the same environment and I'm not having to like run up and down the hallway sort of thing. Go run with it. And it's been transformative for me because I don't feel like I'm on burnout every single day. And because you come out of your office, I mean, I'm sure you feel this. Like I had 10 Zoom calls yesterday and I'm just like, what? I'm so tired. Stepping out of that day to day and really being okay to fire myself from those responsibilities and putting, an accountability person in point to make sure everyone's doing what they need to do and it's not me. That's been transformative to the company as well. So knowing what I'm no longer serving the company and what is my best and highest use.
I love that. I love that. All right. We've got a couple of questions here and don't mind while I read this. We've got CJ who says, I work with students considering starting their own businesses. How did you push through the uncertainty and fear of the unknown to launch your business? And what was your strategy in building your team?
So I overcame the fear of the unknown. That's a great question, CJ. The easiest way was I didn't over leverage my personal financial situation. So I made sure that I had all of my financial ducks in a row and I didn't bet the farm. And I think in this, Hugh Johnson said this yesterday, actually, don't bet the farm. I think in this environment, it's critical to keep cash on the table. It's critical, we can go back to like Susie Orman 101, like make sure you have your emergency fund and move that way. So when I started my business in this environment, I remember I took, it's like $4,000 out of my savings account. But at that time, I was coming off of the military where I was disciplined enough to have the first paycheck go only for my expenses. And I'm talking all in. I didn't have cable. I went to the library for videos. Like I was strict with my budget. And then my second paycheck went into savings. So that by the time I got married, when I got out of the military, I had put together a nice nest egg for someone in their 20s. And I don't like come from any kind of money. Like I'm working family out of Central Jersey kind of thing. So helping the fear of the unknown, I think I was able to make decisions early on in my business that weren't dependent on, I need to bet the farm and this needs to work. Like I created the space so that it could be more of a experimental lab. Like, let me try this weird yarn from India. Who knows if it'll work? And that wound up working. But this darn good yarn wasn't my first iteration. My first iteration was General Imports. And that's really where Darn Good Yarn started. And then it was a spin-off product. And then Darn Good Yarn came to be.
Sure. And then what was the strategy in building your team when it wasn't just you? Because I remember you telling us that you started your business in your house. Was it the spare bedroom or the office or?
It was we lived in an open concept. So it was everything was all together. And my ball winder was like half in my kitchen and half in like this weird dining area. It was a strange layout. And then it moved into in building
the team that when it was more than just you.
So I was doing over $250,000 in revenue. That was my goal. And at that point, because again, I was self-funded, I wound up hiring someone who was a customer of mine. And that was helpful in the beginning. Like it's definitely not a long-term solution, but they understood the company enough and they had their heart in it. And that was hire number one. Did she last with me forever? No. Could I have afforded the people that are with me now who are hardcore awesome? No. And I probably would have burned through them. So I think it's okay to hire in almost a Fisher Price way initially and not go, and that's just my personal experience. Again, because I didn't take my business seriously from the beginning. I didn't think it was really going to grow. And my first hire was someone to just help me do customer service.
Now, looking back on it, would you have changed any of your tactics to build up your team? Would there have been any other tactics that you would have taken?
When I look back, for a very long time, I was very heavily dependent on agencies and outsourcing. And I regret getting off that track, honestly. When I started to build a team internally, I realized, again, going back to what is Darn Good Yarn really good at? We're really good at finding N95 masks in the middle of China, right? We're really good at these, answering these complex solutions. Are we good at building robust multi-people teams? At this juncture, I'm going to say no. I think that's, businesses are good at different things. And I don't think that that's one of them. I think we're good at solving problems. I think we're very good at managing remote teams, which is what we always used to do. And we're going back to that model. So by example, if I have a development product, if I have a development need, it used to be done in-house, and now I'm outsourcing, and I have a great dev team that's overseas, and I'm utilizing them. So looking at that, I wish I would have done that. And actually, back to CJ's question in terms of hire, I didn't have resources, like there weren't resources like Upwork available. And that would actually, in this environment, that would be my first start, is working with contractors around the globe.
That's great. And CJ, thank you for your question. Anyone else that has questions, please feel free to put them into the Facebook Live comment stream. We love them. Nicole loves them. We'll be watching for them. And we actually have another one from Betty Wall. Betty says, I've been participating in the Vogue Global Conversations this month, and sustainability is now an enhanced focus of the designers as they work to pivot their fashion supply chains around the globe. Could this be an opportunity for Darn Good Yarn to come in, because sustainability is such a large part of what you do and what you've built up?
Mm-hmm. Betty, it's a fantastic question. I have been saying, like, at least in the craft space, that we are so early to the party that the party doesn't even know it's started. Like, you don't see, you go into Michael's and you don't see that green aisle, whereas like you go into ShopRite and okay, I go to aisle 4 for my organic coffee, right? That conversation, that consumer conversation isn't happening in big box craft stores. But in fashion, to your point, Betty, sustainability it's what it's all about. And talking about how I'm firing myself from the day to day. I've been working with a consultant, and I just did, if anyone wants the resource afterwards, I can make it available, but I worked with a consultant, actually I have a call with them after this, to do a Berkman assessment. I've never heard of it before, but it's like a personality test, but like to the next place, to really figure out what your highest and best use is. And when I really evaluated that, I go to the place of sourcing and designing. That's what I'm passionate about. That's where I can deliver the most value to my company, not doing HR stuff, obviously. And so I'm excited because I have a great marketing team that we are assembling. And we're starting to really understand what the future of our brand is. So now it's just me now, like they're doing that. And now I'm saying, okay, Darn Good Style, Darn Good Kids, Darn Good Yarn. And now we're starting to really understand what our verticals are in a much clearer way. And now I can say, okay, sustainability has always been at the core of what we are. Now it's just an in vogue word. And I think we can like play on that in such a larger way, where before it was, okay, I have our core product and now I'm like stuck running the day-to-day of the business. It's a great question.
Thank you, Betty. Again, any questions that you have, we're watching the live stream, so please feel free to send them on. And then, Nicole, in terms of those verticals, how have you had any strategy in when you launch those? Have they been part of kind of our pandemic, I guess, how you've been conducting your business during the pandemic? Are you trying to strategize when you release these? What's your thought process behind that? I'm doing it separate from the pandemic. I'm definitely accelerating some initiatives that have been on the whiteboard for years. It seems like Darn Good Kids has been part of what we've been trying to do for a long time. And now it's like, this is a good time, people. Let's double down and do some sprints on it. So I think it's just a prioritization. But again, I haven't had the right fit in terms of product sourcing and really ideating around that. Like, we've been getting like the essentials of the business, like, okay, coming up with new yarns and new colors, but to bring it to the next place, again, that's my position. And now that I'm in that and I can devote my hours a week to that, that's going to naturally accelerate things. When I think about the verticals, I think it's a question of branding and how we are positioning. And we're actually going through, this might make some people cringe because I get like super tense, but we're going to be going through a light rebranding, and we're in talks right now with a couple of agencies that I'm vetting, which is like, okay, Nicole, you're in a COVID environment and you're thinking about branding. And it's like, yes, because this crazy thing is this, if you're an online company or you're on LinkedIn or you're using online, what we all are, to sell your goods or services, people scroll, this is from Facebook, but it's a crazy stat. People scroll the length of the Statue of Liberty every day on their phone. Crazy. Wow. I mean, like, right? It's one of these facts that's just like, boom, right in your face. So when you think about your branding, if it is not strong, if it doesn't have a cohesive message, when someone is looking at it, just mindlessly doing this,
if you take your logo away, will people still know it's your brand? If the answer is no, I think it's a serious time to have a discussion about your visual branding. And this can be for someone who's selling their things on their own and they're making their own personal brand, or for a company. So our evolution, I've always thought of my company as a creative lifestyle company, but that's what Nicole Snow has always thought. Now I have to visually tell that story. So we've been leveraging resources like Facebook has actually been fantastic. We have a rep just because of our spend, but they have a lot of free business resources. Google and Google Trends actually has some amazing resources as well for small business that I recommend to people. And then the last one is a platform called Eureka that I can also provide. I can provide links to after this if anyone's interested. But it's a great place to get hooked up with coaches around the country. So I've been working actually with a marketing strategy coach out in North Jersey for free. I won some mentorship hours. So combining all of that together, I think is just, it's almost good that we had bringing things down a little bit, pumping the brakes, because it seems catastrophic on paper, and to my ego, it was catastrophic, but the business is actually something very healthy. And I think it's needed to happen. I just didn't, I was fighting that, and it's like when you have to break up with someone, you're like, we're going to make it work. We're going to go to therapy. It's going to be great. And that happens, I think, in business too, because you hire people and you build these teams, and you're so and I think entrepreneurs are naturally optimistic. It's easy to let that ego get in the way. And that's been really my theme, and obviously the big ass lesson that the universe wants me to learn. So here we are.
There ends up being some kind of reckoning when you're kind of faced with just that. Yeah. All right. We've got a question from Susan Mahalik, our executive editor. Hey, Susan, good to see you. Does Nicole envision that Darn Good Yarn would ever be the supplier for the green aisle, like a store at Michael's, kind of going back to what you were saying before about, Yeah.
Thanks for that question. Because I love the craft side of my business is what I really love. This is, I do my painting and stuff on the weekend, and I feel like I am that wannabe art teacher. I am my company's core customer. Actually, I am, because I take everything from my company to do pictures. But when I see the future of Darn Good Yarn, I get super passionate about envisioning it being a place where, if you've ever been to Epcot Center in Disney, where Epcot meets Michael's, like a big box craft store, and having it be this collision of using crafting from around the world the same way we've used cooking. When you look at the Anthony Bourdains of the world and those sort of massive global food brands, almost, that's not the right word, but cooking and bringing those conversations together. I go to the place the other part of that, and what sort of makes up the fabric of society is you have food, and then you also have crafts, and it's the clothes that are worn, and okay, so you go from style, and then you break down what is that style actually made of. So some places in the world it's made up of intricate weavings, some places in the world is made up of specific kinds of silk. And I want Darn Good Yarn to be the teller of this sort of next level global story, so that you're not, glitter is cool. I understand mainstream craft supplies, but I just feel that people are looking for something deeper in their reasoning for crafting. So for example, I'm working on this weird little loom right now that was hand carved by this little old man in the middle of Europe. And I would love to actually go there, interview him, tell his story, and have that on a website or have that in some kind of series. I think it's interesting, and that I think people need that and want that connection. And crafting does a good job to get us almost there. But the full thing for me, where I've gotten the most enjoyment, and I'm lucky because I'm in a weird position because I am the founder of a craft company, that I've been able to work with wools that have come from heirloom sheep breeds, and you work in crafts that are so obscure and weird. And I want to be able to bring that to people in a way that doesn't totally kill their budget, but makes an heirloom quality product, even if it's small, that just gives them that place and sense of connectivity. I think we've all like experimented in our kitchens, maybe, but like, you know, we might get fancy one night and have a Moroccan night or something. And there's just something cool and interesting and thought-provoking about joining crafting to this world experience. And I think at the root of a lot of these crafts, you find a lot of eco-consciousness, because crafting is rooted in using what's around you, right, to make something else beautiful. So when you look at like original dyes and indigo dyes, right, this is stuff coming from nature. So I think when you dig deep, you will find that there are these lines of ecological soundness, and then these deep family stories too. And so that's really my big ass goal for Darn Good Yarn.
Yeah. And I mean, it sounds like you've already built the foundations because of your internationality and all of that, because of your sustainability, and because you've got some really good storytellers at Darn Good Yarn. So, yeah, so please, anyone who has questions, we're watching it. Oh, wait, someone else came through. Kristen says, hi, Nicole. Hey, Kristen. Hey. Given our current situation in the world, it's pretty amazing that Darn Good Yarn is 99% online. When you were planning Darn Good Yarn, did you consider retail? And was there a challenge because Kristen's thinking, consumers like to touch and feel the yarn before they buy it. So, have you ever planned on doing retail? Has online majority been
we did a factory outlet for like a hot second. And I think we've always skirted like, okay, let's play with it. We've always had one foot in, one foot out, but that's more for like the social media effect. It hasn't been for, okay, this is going to be a big part of our business. When I first started the company, it had to be 100% online because I was following my husband's career, which like within 10 years, we moved 15 times. So that meant I was packing up my yarn and we were moving to wherever. And I had to open up a lot of sales tax accounts. So when all this Nexus stuff came along, I'm like, oh, I'm already a pro at that. So but yes, in the beginning, I think there was a naiveness. Like I was on that like generational sort of divide where I'm like, okay, it's online, no big deal. And then, and so that was okay to me. So I didn't realize, I guess, that other people needed to touch and feel the yarn. But I think that's changed. I think like I was in early because I didn't know any better. And that was a good thing. And now people are very accustomed to buying yarn online. So yeah, that was the only way that I knew that I would be able to scale. And it's such a funky, cool, weird product. Like I love it, but it can definitely have a saturation point as well. And I think it would have been very risky to just have a straight like retail shop on Main Street. I do foresee in the future having a warehouse, like an experiential warehouse where people can come in, see, and have people come in to take classes on site, but that's years off at this point. But in terms of like just the shop, I understood what the consumer behavior was for my industry, and I ignored it because I saw other things. Like you saw Amazon taking off, and you saw people like that was slowly shifting. I don't want to say like I was that much of a future seer or whatever, fortune teller, whatever.
Fortune teller, sure.
Yeah. So like I wasn't that great, but like I did know that I was starting to purchase more, and you know, you just went with it. And you know, to CJ's original question, I didn't have the whole farm bedded. So if it didn't work, I would have been able to evaluate and say, you know what, I also need a store, an in-person store component. But from my inception up until about 3 years ago, I was doubling every single year in sales. So my money was on continuing to double down on e-commerce.
Kind of the, if it's not broke, don't fix it mantra.
Yeah.
We've got a question from Yolanda Caldwell from the College of St. Rose and friend of Women at Work. Good to see you this morning, Yolanda. She says, thank you for sharing your story and resources to assist small business owners, which great. Yes, thank you very much. And please share one piece of advice for recent college graduates. Of course, we are now in the season of, you know, the class of 2020 and them not being able to hear that advice in person from a lot of people. So what's one piece of advice you would share?
I'm not saying this selfishly. I think that Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this. He's like, if you want to go work for someone, go work for them for free. And I think in this environment where you have businesses like mine that are like, holy shit, what just happened, right? And we're still like, again, like my PPP money is still like, I still have 2 more weeks. So we're really only 6 weeks into this, nothing. And we're still getting our sea legs and figuring out which way is up. And I know there's other business people out there that are just slaying, and it's their Super Bowl right now. But for me, it's like, oh my gosh, I know that I'm building my company so it will be here another day because I'm way too tenacious for that. But for a college graduate, they're in very interesting places that if they're still living at home, they're still on someone's bankroll. That's not a bad thing, and it can be a way for them to fuel their resume, reaching out to small businesses that they go like, hey, there's something interesting there. And it's like an extended internship. But like, if I had someone reach out to me and they like knew how to do social media or really like understood marketing or they did well in it and they want to just be a marketing assistant and say like, hey, do you need help with anything? I will work for you for free on a consistent basis on this particular project. It would be like amazing to me right now. It would show an incredible loyalty. And when the floodgates open back up again and the economy starts to repair, the graduate either has an amazing reference or they potentially have a job like on the other side of this as companies are trying to figure out, FTE and how PPP actually, what that actually means.
Right. Great. And I want to kind of twist that onto you is if you were a college graduate right now, what entrepreneur, what business would you work for free for?
Wow, that's a great question. Don't you like when you're on these things, people are like, that's a great question. You're like,
I love it.
Okay. Those are real shitty questions. I don't know. But let's see, who would I work for? I think Death Wish Coffee. I have a branding crush on them big time locally. Let's see. I think I would also work for Beekman 1802 if I'm just thinking like the local area. I think both of them have, Josh and Brent over there and Mike Brown over at Death Wish. They are just like amazing storytellers. And even if for my own selfish reasons, I wanted to learn how to brand more, storytell more, just have that understanding, that would be very interesting to me. If I was in this area, I would go big and reach out to someplace like Patagonia. And look at their R&D process, but like really understanding. I mean, they've been trailblazers in terms of like the triple bottom line framework for companies, 1% for the planet, and B Corp. So that might be like another one, but that's really far out there. These are 2 local companies I would work for free for. Doesn't mean I will, guys, just so you know, but you get the context.
In case they're watching. So we've got, it's not necessarily a question, but a comment. From Chris, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, Christiane Smith, who says, brilliant business acumen coupled with authentic conversation makes for a wonderful morning, and kudos. And she's currently wearing one of her favorite sari skirts, one of many, and she wants to thank you for that.
That's awesome. That's so fantastic. Thanks for that comment. That's great. I have been going between, I found like a random bucket of tie-dye clothes in the warehouse. So see those up on the site, but of course I had to take a couple for myself. So I've been going between like artsy fartsy, but then I go into like my total rugged tie-dye, like it's getting really real in the Snow household. So like on the weekends and then, so yeah, it's been like between sari skirts and tie-dye and whatever other fun colors I can find that are easily washable because I'm not getting anything dry cleaned. And my 3-year-old has this new habit of using me as her napkin where she just goes over and goes, so you're like,
love it. Thank you. Thank you for adding that. And so how has it been for you for, working from home and having a young one and, balancing your family life there while, also running a business?
Yeah. I'm excited about this part of the conversation. It's been, so again, the first 4 weeks, I just want to like throw out because I was joking about like, oh, I'm worth more dead than alive. And then when I realized like I can stop saying that because we're getting to a place of stability, And like I wasn't taking the tailpipe every day, and I wasn't making those like very off-color jokes that I should not be making. So throw that away. I was talking to a friend about this, and I think that especially if you have employees right now, and maybe your situation is actually very similar, people work from home, and you're still on PPP time. It's a time that you will never get back again where you don't have to worry about payroll. And I was very quick to see that, where like I think every employer is like, okay, how do I make payroll this week? How do I make benefits? Like, how do I make this all going? Especially when, we were going into this with our sales, they were 47% down where they were last year. So it was no joke. I mean, we're definitely back up, but it was no joke issue in terms of cash flow. When we got the stability of PPP, it allowed me to say, okay, this money is for real. Take a big ass deep breath, Nicole, and it's going to be okay. There's still going to be changes, but then double down on your mental health. Like, and I talked about this last time, but I think it's even more critical now, because we're sitting in front of these screens all day. There's a lot of like, you're kind of looking at how your makeup looks. I'm looking at how my makeup looks. It's like this weird thing. It's a lot of like, it's almost more stimulation than in our current workday. Like, we used to have our car rides to go in and you listen to your Audible book. We've lost those moments of peace in our life. I'm doing my therapy, like I'm going to my therapist. I'm working with my Reiki person, and like we're doing our phone calls. And I'm also, again, like doing that Berkman assessment for me and really evaluating what that means and what that means to my organization. It's been allowing me to redefine exactly who I am. And I've never been able to do that before as an owner, because when you're focused on growing the company, and you grow it organically because you want to support the employees to support the customers. So it's sort of like this very vicious cycle. And this is the first time ever where I've been able to go, okay, I don't have to do this. Like, some of it is taken care of, Nicole. Why don't you figure out what you're really good at? Because as owners, you wind up taking every single thing on. Like, okay, there's this customer service issue. Okay, Yelp is doing this. All right, this person is like blowing up our social media. I mean, like, because the crazy comes out even more during those times. So you're in more reactionary mode. I've been able to really we'll try to focus on what it is that is really who I am, so that I can be in this for the long haul. Because I really think, the next 2 years is going to suck ass. Like, if that's the quote of this, it's like, I worry about the economy. I worry about the quality of workers. I mean, I think people, as they're rehiring, have to ask, like, did you leave your job? Like, did you actually quit during this time and leave a company high and dry? Because that's, in some cases, that's where it was at, to go get your extra $600 a week. And I know employers that are dealing with this, and like, they can't hire people back, and cutting that noise out and focusing on, okay, if I'm going to knock it out of the park, I need to be like top game right now. So working out as much as you can. I posted yesterday, I ran a couple miles with my husband and my daughter. So we're rethinking how our family life works. And to that, like, I feel like we've been having more family like town halls, like with my husband and I.
Oh.
Like, yesterday was a great example of this, and maybe someone can use this story. But so my daughter's 3, but of course every kid has like Zoom school, so she's learning her letters. Tuesdays for me, though, tend to be my highest concentration of Zoom calls. Like I said, I had 10 calls yesterday. So you just hear me echoing through the household. And I'm from New Jersey, so I talk loud, blah, blah, blah. And it's a high business stress. And my daughter like wasn't focusing on school. And my husband was like, she won't write her ends on the whiteboard. And it became this thing. And then we talk about it. And then we say, you know what? Don't do school on Tuesdays. Go outside. Go let her run her own schedule, because she's feeling the energy of the house. And like, that's fucking good enough. Like, I'm sorry, but like, it's good enough. And like, we have to be kinder with that. And like, when we said that, I was like, that would have never happened pre-COVID. Like, to have like a response, like a family response in that way. And I'm very proud of that. Like, I'm proud of our family, the way we've been adapting in that way. But it has come through a lot more communication with each other.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. And something that you had touched on that I wanted to bring back that was talked about a little bit in the Back to Business is what is going to be the future of hiring and how you do it post COVID. And you talked a little bit about the questions, but what are your other insights that you might take away when you're hiring to build up your team again now that you've experienced everything here?
Yeah, I used to just look at the resume and like, the person checked out. I mean, I'm being a little cute, but it was a very basic process. Moving forward, we are going to be instituting assessments, deeper assessments in terms of personality, because we're realizing that, like, yes, they can have the skill set, but we really need the right fit in terms of personality on our team. Like, because we're hardcore. I mean, like, I look at my team and it's like, I would want to be on the other side of that. Like, they're my SEAL team and they're badasses, and like, great job to all of them for, like, they adapted so quickly, and that's how I knew they were very powerful. Like, I think we're all working in our silos, and within like 2 weeks they were like, got it. And they were all working together and they were building out processes in Basecamp and like checking things off, and then it triggers to someone else, and I'm like, shit, you guys are geniuses, and that's amazing. How do we get more of that? So we are going to change, getting them all assessed, have my consultant go through that, and then help us come up with a job scorecard so that we know how to hire for the future. So we're getting like um, spot on employees. But then we're also really looking to outsourcing a lot of the things that we had in-house as well.
Yeah. What do you think is going to be one of the things that you outsource that you used to do in-house?
I think our marketing strategy and our marketing operations. So like two disparate things. So our strategy, I have my person down in New Jersey coming in just on a weekly basis. And because they're touching so many other industries, that was originally the secret sauce to Darn Good Yarn, is that I used to look at all the other industries. So this person like has that, and they have a very integrator kind of mindset. So they want to get in and they're like, okay, this is what you need to do. And then on the operations side, we have that outsourced to an extent as well, with my office manager helping with the lift in terms of internal accountability, but really planning out, okay, this is when emails fire off. This is when social media fires off for this, so that it's all speaking the same language. Where when I look back the last 2 to 3 years of Darn Good Yarn, we were like, okay, taking that off of the plate of the marketing consultant and bringing it in-house. And that was like a totally big failure.
Hey, it's a good time to reflect on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we tried it. If it worked, it would have been friggin' awesome. But here we are.
Right. I love it. All right. So we've got another comment from Kathleen Rudischauser. Kathleen, good to see you. Women at Work breakfast speaker from 2019. So good to see you this morning. So the comment is, thank you, Nicole, for such a positive start to my business day. Your optimism and realism is just what we need to hear today. It's a great start to the day. What do you think of that?
Well, Kathleen, that's really kind. I don't know. Like, I thought I was like authentic before, but I was joking on a call 2 days ago, and it was with a bunch of like older white dudes, which I love. I'm married, but it was definitely like, I was definitely the one who was not part of the main bell curve, right? I was the outlier. And they were like, oh, we might get dressed up for this like thing. And I was like, I might wear a bra. And like other women on the call were like, like we were kind of like Beavis laughing a little bit, like Beavis and Butthead laughing. If we're taking ourselves so seriously in this environment, I think we're going to lose real opportunity to connect. And when you look at the business side of things, like Sarah, like you and I have connected, and it's probably connected even more now in this environment, because we have this very like, shit, like you're working remote, you're getting married next week, and like, oh my God, like how are you? And we're developing these relationships. And when you hear people say, oh, when you're on social media, you want to develop relationships first before you go in for the ask. Mm-hmm. What a cool opportunity in the here and now, though, because we're all kind of going through like joking about, okay, you drink a bottle of wine by the time it's 6 o'clock, like when you're off of your Zoom calls, or maybe you start drinking on your Zoom calls. I don't know. And like, it's changed so quickly. And I think to just not hide it, like, because you can't hide it. I mean, you guys are seeing my family room. Like there's nothing to hide. There's something really cool in being real. It just, like, for me, it's much easier to say, like, this is who I am. And a lot of people don't like me, and I'm cool with that too. Like, it's one less Christmas card I need to send. It's fine. So yeah, I think authenticity is going to be important when we move forward, because it's like we're all going through such a shit show. And I look at, like, my friends who, like, when I went through basic training in the military, we went through a shit show together, and, like, we're still best friends. Like, it's one of those relationships where you only talk, like, a couple times a year, but you instantly click. I think we all have those. I think this is happening on that global scale. And I'm not being, like, cliche about this. I'm very passionate about where you just get to know each other on this human level. And it's not so much like, robot business stuff.
Definitely. Yeah, there's an authenticity when, I mean, we've had to go back to basics in so many ways. All of us, from where we're working and taking care of our mental health, and we've had to kind of strip back.
Mm-hmm.
And I find the authenticity of our shared experiences and our individual experiences just be really refreshing. And I do hope that some part of that authenticity kind of continues forward. And that's why I love having speakers like you for our breakfast series. And I think that is a great way to end this morning with Nicole. Usually I would ask now for a round of applause for our speaker, but Nicole, thank you for sharing your morning, sharing your time, and sharing your story with us. I wanted to thank Bank of America, who is the presenting sponsor for this breakfast series. They've been a big partner for us at Women at Work, and they've just been invaluable. And also to thank our corporate partners who, without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And if you're not a member of Women at Work, please join. Right now, it's $25 for a year-long membership. You get access to events like these once we get back to in-person. Breakfasts are free to our members. We have a quarterly magazine. We have all the ways that we try to connect, and we try to tell these authentic stories like Nicole's. So thank you all for joining us this morning. And I hope you have a great rest of your week, truly. And going into a long weekend. Yeah, let's go.
You guys got this. Just keep swimming.
You do. Yes. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.